Artash, the theater is yours. Please tell us your presentation.
Thank you very much. Let me just share my screen here. There we go. Hello everyone. Bonjour. I'm Artash, a grade 9 student from Toronto, Canada. It's a pleasure to be speaking here. I'm interested in space, robotics, artificial intelligence, and seismology, and I love making projects. And today I'm going to be sharing with you one of my latest projects, the silence of Canadian cities, the seismology impact of the COVID-19 lockdown. It's been over 1 year since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I'm tired, and I'm pretty sure many of you are as well. Life has completely changed. Everything outside is different. When I go outside, I have to wear a mask to protect myself. In shops, we have to practice social distancing. We can't meet people outside anymore. I can't even go to school anymore or meet my friends in real life. Every day when I wake up in the morning, I'm confused. Is this reality? This whole world seems so surreal and so different from what it used to be in 2019. And I'm sure all of you feel a similar way. And one thing I've seen common in many cities all around the world by governments to stop the spread of COVID-19 is lockdowns. Lockdowns slow the human activity in cities. They shut down borders. Provinces have gone into lockdowns, and so have cities. Transportation has slowed down. Businesses have closed. Offices have closed. People are recommended to stay at home. And you know what? Lockdowns are a hard decision to make. It requires a lot of political goodwill. Because in a lockdown, businesses close. So people suffer from unemployment. Students can't go out and go to school anymore. So schools have turned online. So it's actually a really hard decision to make. And I wanted to see how effective these lockdowns actually are in the whole of Canada. Are these lockdowns reaching the desired effects? Are they actually slowing the activity, human activity in cities? And that is what I wanted to measure. Well, how do I measure this? Well, I came up with an idea. To measure the change in activity above ground, I would go to subsurface, below the ground. Why subsurface? Well, human activity above the ground causes vibrations, up and down vibrations. Therefore, by measuring these vibrations under the ground, we can tell the level of activity going on above the ground in cities. And how exactly can we measure these vibrations above the ground, or below the ground rather? Well, luckily, we have an entire field of seismology. We have seismic monitoring stations spread around the whole of Canada that are meant to observe seismic vibrations from earthquakes or volcano eruptions. And they are really sensitive. They can pick up earthquake vibrations from thousands of kilometers away. And that's why seismic vibration stations are usually placed away from cities, so they don't pick up sounds that's coming from the cities, since they're aimed at capturing earthquake vibrations. But it's unavoidable that they do pick up human-made noise, especially when nearer to cities. For example, in this diagram, you can see that the seismic monitoring station clearly picked up the vibrations by a train. Or in the second one, it clearly picked up vibrations when a cruise ship was passing by. So what I did, I reversed this. Instead of trying to remove the human-made noise, I decided to actually measure the human-made noise that's being picked up by these seismic monitoring stations, so I could observe the change in activity in cities. So I picked 6 seismic monitoring stations over Canada, and I purposely picked 6 that were very close to big cities, so closer than 50 kilometers away from the city center. And these were big cities, and the data from these cities was coming all over the year. Now, in fact, since these seismic monitoring stations are very sensitive, the data comes at a really high sampling rate. Actually, at over 100 100 up and down vibrations can be detected every single second. So on the left, you can see that raw data for around 10 minutes. And I wanted, now, in fact, it's very easy to differentiate the noise that's being picked up that's human-made from these seismic vibrations, because human-made sounds will continue across the whole time, while earthquakes will only spike up once in a while. So I performed analysis on this raw data from the left. I averaged this over long periods of time to get a trend of seismic vibrations in cities across the year. And I even, on the right, I also separated data into different frequencies so I can understand what is the source of these seismic vibrations. Now, in fact, before I go further, if you want to do this whole process that I did for any city in the world or your own city, I've created an online tutorial that walks you through these steps. So you can do it in a few hours, you can get the analysis for any city. It's available on my GitHub. So I performed analysis on the raw seismic up and down data from these 6 cities and got 3 very interesting results. The first result I got was that the lockdown did indeed affect seismic vibrations. Therefore, seismic vibrations are a good indicator of human activities in cities. In this diagram, the seismic vibrations for 6 cities are plotted over time. The brighter areas are times when the seismic vibration is higher and the ground is vibrating more, while the darker areas are times when the seismic vibration is less. You can see there's 2 lines in this diagram where most of these cities have gone very dark. Therefore, the seismic vibrations have decreased. And what is so special about this period? In fact, we know that on 11th March, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic. And this first line is exactly a few weeks after this was declared. And a few weeks after this was declared was exactly the time that provinces in Canada went into a lockdown. So it is clear that during this lockdown period, from March to May, the seismic vibrations in all the cities decreased significantly. You can see the area between these 2 lines is significantly darker. In the cities with a higher population of over 1 million, like Toronto, Calgary, Ottawa, which is the capital, the seismic vibrations decreased by over 30%, which is decreasing by over 1/3. On the right, I've also plotted the seismic vibrations for the cities individually, and you can clearly see there's a dip in seismic vibrations during the March to May lockdown period. Now, I wanted to go further into this. I wanted to understand what exactly is happening with these seismic vibrations, not over time, but on the weekly level. Since I know that even if most services have shut down, essential services in cities are still running from Monday to Friday. But on Saturday and Sunday, even these essential services come to a halt. So I measured the seismic vibrations averaged on weekdays and weekends. On the left, that diagram is shown. The blue is what it is on weekdays. And you can see on weekends, the seismic vibration is 50% lower than it was on weekdays. So this is a very significant trend that I can see. On the right, you can see even more specifically what is the seismic vibration over time for around a month. These green periods are weekends, and you can clearly see that seismic vibrations undergo a dip during the weekend, which is obviously because human activity has decreased during this time. But I also wanted a more predictive aspect of my model. I could clearly see that I could measure this human activity using my seismic monitoring stations, but I wanted to understand what human activities are causing this decrease in seismic vibrations. So I broke this data. I performed more analysis and broke it into frequencies. And for Ottawa in specific, I noticed the biggest decrease in seismic activity during the lockdown was in the 15 to 20 hertz frequency band. And you know what? This is the same frequency band that's very likely to be affected by transport, by underground trains, which came to a large halt during the lockdown. So it's very clear that we can see just by seismic vibrations that the transportation has decreased. And here the dip is by over 50%. So it's really amazing how an artificial lockdown imposed by the government can cause a 50% reduction in seismic vibrations during this time. So there are three great takeaways from my project. First of all, I can use seismic vibrations to understand how effective is the lockdown in stopping human activities in cities. Second of all, I can compare the seismic vibrations on weekdays and weekends, and I clearly found out that human activity greatly decreased during the weekends instead of weekdays. Lastly, I was even able to track where exactly these changes are happening in terms of transportation or kind of human activity. And in fact, I have packaged all of my analysis and data into an app, monitormylockdown.com, which will come out soon today. Using this app, you can do the three things I have shown you for all the cities in Canada I have put my project for. So all you have to do is enter the app, and then you'll be able to compare the past few weeks of human activity with human activity before COVID-19 or during the first lockdown. You'll be able to compare the seismic vibration in your own cities for weekends versus weekdays. And you'll even be able to understand why these changes are happening for these cities. For now, this is just valid for Canadian cities, but I am expanding this to Canadian cities and cities all around the world. And this will soon be available as an Android app as well. Now, the results for my project are really important. And in fact, these results can be used by policymakers to enforce surgical lockdowns on cities. What surgical lockdowns? Big lockdowns are very hard to implement and cause a big cost to society. But using my results, we can pinpoint exactly what are the hotspots that we need to target using these lockdowns. And in the future, the World Health Organization has already said COVID-19 is not the last pandemic. There will be more pandemics after this forthcoming, and we need to be prepared for that. And with the results from my app and model, we can understand which areas in the cities have not decreased in seismic vibration or have not decreased in human activity during a lockdown. So we know that the cases will rise in those areas because people are not following lockdown measures in that time. And this app can even be used because we've been reading on the news that hospitals are running out of equipment, out of personal equipment and testing equipment. So by understanding what regions and cities are not following lockdown measures, we can understand these cities are going to experience a rise in cases. So we can target our lockdowns in those areas and we can transport protectional equipment to those areas. Thank you. Thanks.
Wow, that is very, very impressive. Can I ask everyone who is not presenting to mute themselves, please? You don't show up. Artash, that was very impressive. Can I also ask you, have you also shared this with the Canadian government?
So I have been presenting this in a couple conferences, even this one as well. Though I have not shared this with the Canadian government yet, but this is definitely one of my future steps for this project since I am developing this app that can easily be accessed by policymakers. And I do plan to share it in the media and to the government soon.
I mean, the government may have a program like this, but they will spend, $100 million to do what you have done. And you should say that you will share your results with them and they only have to give you $50 million. Very impressive. Thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you.